What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It is awesome to see you again. Now today what I thought we would do is go through a few distillery whiskey related Q&A questions. So earlier this week I put out the call for you guys to ask your questions on various different social medias. So go and make sure you're following on those. They are all linked in the description down below. But I've picked out a few questions, so let's work our way through them. The first one out of the gate is Alejandro, and he would like to know, what is the best way to store your whiskey? Well, mate, storing whiskey is incredibly simple. There's really only a couple of things you want to avoid, and that is direct sunlight and oxygen. So keeping your bottles in a cabinet away from windows or just on a shelf where there's no sunlight, that's going to be fine. And as far as oxygen, whiskey does oxidize. This is how it technically goes bad. Now, what happens when whiskey oxidizes? It loses a lot of its taste, a lot of its character, and a lot of the alcohol will evaporate as well, meaning you are left with a whiskey that tastes like it is extremely watered down. Now, as much as we all love a nice decanter, these aren't great when it comes to keeping oxygen out of whiskey. They don't tend to, for the most part, seal very well at the top. This lets a lot of air into the decanter and the whiskey will obviously oxidize in that scenario. So to store your bottles, it's easy. Keep them out of the sunlight, keep them in the bottle with the seal or the closer tightly shut. If you're going to use a decanter, use one that has a good seal. That way your whiskey bottles are going to last a very, very long time. All right, John Paul wants to know, are you planning a toasted barrel or do you already have one? Now, interesting thing, John Paul, you've obviously heard about toasting and charring of barrels. Now, those processes for us go hand in hand. We don't have a charred barrel that isn't a toasted barrel. Toasting a barrel brings forward all those beautiful wood sugars and tannins within the wood. And then by charring the barrel, you actually caramelize all of those sugars. So do we have any toasted barrels? Yeah, all of them. All right, Skinner wants to know, what happens to the barrel if it leaks after adding hot water? So this is obviously off the back of the video the other day where I was getting that Buffalo Trace barrel ready to fill with spirit. Now, if you haven't seen that video yet, shoot back to the videos page after this one and you can watch it there. Now, if we did spot a leak at that stage, once we had added that hot water, the first thing I would do is wait. If it's a small leak and that barrel has been sitting around for a little while, chances are that timber is going to swell and that leak will sort itself out. If it doesn't, couple of things. Obviously, we've just bought this barrel, so it would be a warranty situation. We take it back to the cooperage, we get another one, then they can decide if they're going to repair it or do whatever with it. Now, small leak, depending where it is, how bad it is, you might be able to plug it or you could use some beeswax on it just to seal that barrel up. But at the end of the day, it's a brand new item. You've bought it from a cooperage. They are not a cheap thing, so you're most likely, if it leaks at that point, going to return it. Now, Cameron would like to know, was the distillery a part-time gig until you could sell product? Now, our distillery does have a pretty interesting history. It was actually started by my father in 2015 as a gin distillery. Now, in the world of Tasmanian distilleries, it was a little bit unique in that regard because a lot of the times out of the gate, a distillery will produce barrels of whiskey, sit those aside to age, and then produce gins or vodkas or spirits of that nature that can be bottled and sold relatively quick. Now, being that Dad was making gin exclusively, we didn't really have that problem of having to do like part-time work to get to a point where matured spirit was coming out of barrels. A couple of years into Dad starting the distillery, I was doing some other work elsewhere, but at the same time, I'd actually just welcomed our first child, my son Toby, into the world. So I did have a bit of a change in scenario. I went to help Dad a couple of days a week, leaving me free for the rest of the week to stay home and look after me boy. During that time, we started obviously producing some barrels of whiskey, very slowly at the start, of course. But now, 6 years later, this has been my main job for a fair while now, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I cannot imagine doing anything else at this point. All right, Luke would like to know, what is the best way to manage an infinity bottle? Well, Luke, with an infinity bottle, other than letting it run out, there's really no way you can get it wrong. You can run it absolutely any way you please and whatever way works for you. You can go full scientist and track every single drop that goes into your infinity bottle. You can run fast and loose and throw whatever you want, whenever you want into that thing. You might have a golden rule of you're only going to put this style or this region of whiskey into your bottle. It really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you're creating something unique, one of a kind, that is truly yours. All you got to do is have fun with it and don't let it run out. All right, Tim K wants to know, I can't handle neat whiskey, so I mix it with Coke. How can I get used to drinking straight whiskey? Well, Tim, at the end of the day, you're gonna like what you like, and sometimes you just can't change the things you don't like. But I truly believe there's whiskey out there for everyone. The hard thing is finding it. This is part of the journey. We all go through our whiskey experiences. We develop patterns. We find things we like. We find things we don't like. Now, you might find some finishes work better for you than others. Some styles or regions will work for you. Others won't. It's just about trying stuff and navigating your way through that whiskey environment, which I know is hard. There is so much out there, it's ridiculous. But here's what I want you to keep in mind. Whiskey is a high proof spirit. For the most part, what you have in your glass is going to be somewhere between 40 and 70% alcohol. This is a whole different ballgame than when it comes to beer and wine and cider and such. So yes, if you are new to that high proof spirit world, your tolerance for that alcohol is not going to be very high. But if you really are genuinely interested in getting to a point where you can drink and enjoy neat whiskey, what I would suggest is stick with your Coke as a mixer, but slowly bring the level of Coke down. And what that means is the alcohol content and the whiskey flavors in your glass are going to start to increase and outweigh the Coke. But you'll do this over time, and therefore you'll build up that tolerance slowly. If you give that a go, I really think that might work for you. And that is going to be it for this Q&A video, guys. So massive thank you to everyone that posted questions for me. And a huge thanks to you who is about to leave a like on this video. If you are new, make sure you head over to the channel and hit the subscribe button. That would be awesome. And I'll catch all you legends in another video very soon. You guys stay safe, stay awesome. Later on.